What an amazing Sweet 16 and Elite 8 rounds. Wow. Now, my team did get beat in the Sweet 16 and my bracket was completely busted down too. But let's be honest, everyone's bracket is busted. And don't even try to lie and act like yours isn't. Anyways, we are going to recap a little bit of what happened last week, highlighting the best games, who's been the outstanding player of the tournament, and we're going to predict the Final Four and the championship game all right here. Let's get to the games. Alright, we're going to start with the first game. That is on Saturday, April 1st at 6:09. They always give the weirdest times. PM, EST. Florida Atlantic is now 35-3, and they are still not favored. This is in Texas. This is at NRG Stadium in Houston. And San Diego State is favored by 3. The over-under is 131.5. And where they are is where I thought actually Memphis had the potential to be. But they went ahead and they beat Memphis by 1. Then beat the 16 seed Farley Dickinson by 8. Beat Tennessee by 7, and then K-State by 3, which was another great game. Davis and Golden have been amazing in this tournament. They have now turned me into a believer. I picked against them in every single round. I thought Memphis was a really bad draw for them, and they overcome each situation. I'm going to go ahead and tell you to go ahead and pick Florida Atlantic because that's the way this tournament has been. This tournament is much more evened out than it ever has been. But there is nothing guaranteed. That's one thing that we know moving forward. I also think it's a good time to take Florida Atlantic because I believe a lot of people will go in San Diego State's favor. Now, it definitely could be they are a veteran team that plays defense always. What makes them so hard to guard is they have a different high scorer seemingly every game. There's a new high scorer. And rightfully so, too. They beat Alabama by 7 points, who Alabama is a really good team. And they cruised all the way till they played against San Diego State. You got Butler, you got Bradley, you got Parrish. Bradley is the only one that gets over 10 points. He's at 12.5. But do not let that fool you. That did fool me a little bit. And like everyone else this year, we were all very wrong. However, I have Florida Atlantic going to the national championship and improving to 36-3 into one of the best stories in college basketball history. That's what college basketball is all about. The number 5 seeded Miami, Florida Hurricanes versus number 4 seeded UConn. UConn is favored by 5.5, and the over-under is 149. That's 18 more than the first matchup, so they think there's going to be some buckets dropped in this one. I think 5.5 is too much, whether you think they're going to win or not. This is kind of Miami still not getting the credit that you would think they would get. It's either that or they just think so highly of UConn in this tournament that UConn must be the favorites to win it all if they're favored by 5.5. And you can't really blame them either, as UConn hasn't really been tested yet, and that's crazy. They're in the Elite Four and haven't been in a close game at all. They even blew the doors off of Gonzaga. And Gonzaga, these last few years, is used to making deep tournament runs. But there's something special about UConn when they get this kind of seeding, right? And they usually do it on years when people don't think they're going to. Much like Michigan State. I know, I'm sorry I had to bring it up. But when we get a 4 or 5 seed, that's usually when we're at our most dangerous. And it seems like UConn is the exact same way. They've got a wonderful duo there at UConn with Sanogo, who I've talked about quite a lot, and Hawkins. But hey, Miami's been damn impressive too. Their last 3 games, they've scored in the 80s, and they beat Texas by 7, an incredibly talented team. They beat Houston by 14, and they beat Indiana by like 17. Excuse me, I just looked, it was 16. There, I have UConn, but I do not have them covering the spread. I think this will be a close game. UConn will be tested for the first time in this tournament. Which then brings us to UConn versus Florida Atlantic. And I think over the tournament overall, it's been Noel. He's been the one that's been the biggest eye-opener When it comes to just looking at NBA talent, I believe that is him. The point guard for Kansas State, who had 5 steals in back-to-back games against my beloved Michigan State, and then again against Florida Atlantic. He had 30 points and 12 assists against them. But of the Final Four, I go Sanogo personally. I think he is the best player remaining in the tournament. He's been dominant in scoring and getting rebounds without fouling as well. And they've been dominating people. It's hard not to go Sanogo. Now for fun, let's go to the best game of the tournament. And I go right back to the Noel kid. Michigan State versus Kansas State. Sweet 16 matchup in overtime. Kansas State won 98-93. Wow, just in the scoring alone. Normally when Michigan State loses, I'm like mad about it still the next day after we lose in the tournament. But I couldn't even be mad. The kid, and not just him, I mean, they had other guys hit big shots too. Could we have made some more free throws late down the stretch? Yes, but overall, you just have to tip your hat. Wish we would have beat you guys, but we didn't, and a tip of the cap. UConn, a team that is known for making historic tournament runs. Kemba Walker and Emeka Okafor are the first two that come to my mind. Versus a team that has literally never been there before. And I would imagine that most people's votes would be on UConn. Or really, even if Miami wins, I think more people would go for Miami as well. But that'd be cool to have 2 Florida teams in the championship. I will be rooting for Florida Atlantic. I want them to win it now. But I've got UConn. I think UConn is going to be the national champions, and I think a lot of other people do too, and we've all been wrong so far this year. Maybe the luck will swing back our way and we'll end up getting this one right. But anyways, what are your thoughts? Who's going to win it all? Who's going to win these Final Four matchups? Let me know in the comment section below. But that's going to do it for me, guys. Have a great day.